Welcome to the Italian Football Podcast.
One big question in particular, and that is, and I saw you tweeting about it last night, where you kind of pretty much said you were kind of on the same page as me, that you think probably is the time now for Allegri to go. So do you think, given the crisis that Juventus find themselves in, they're two defeats from two now from the Champions League, 0 points, 6 points off qualification already. I mean, it's looking like already needs something of a mini miracle to qualify. Do you think Allegri should go now?
I think there's no choice. Something has to give, something has to change. The club have to be bold. And if that boldness means Allegri out the door, it just has to happen. Something has to happen, because this is a club that have just completely lost their identity. This is a club with 1 win in 7 now. With a trip to Monza at the weekend, there is no guarantee that 3 points are coming in that one either. A team that obviously very unfortunately denied the win against Salernitana, but what are you doing in the 95th minute at home against Salernitana, needing a VAR decision to go your way to get maximum points? This is a team that have lost their opening 2 Champions League matches in a group stage for the first time in their history. All signs are pointing in a negative direction. And from what I saw last night, yet again, up and close pitch side at the Allianz, it's a team that are absolutely clueless going forward. It's just so frustrating to watch. And you and I have discussed so often how important it is for the Italian clubs to be performing on the biggest stage. And when our biggest club of them all, obviously in terms of a domestic sense, are putting up performances like that, something has to change. And I think certainly there are more at the club who have plenty to answer for. It's not just Allegri, but I think his inability to bring anywhere near the best out of this team, he must be held accountable. And I think, knowing the fact they're already on the verge of elimination in the Champions League in September, which is incredible, I think it's still early enough that they can make a positive impact with a change if they're bold enough and salvage this season in some capacity.
Yeah, and okay, we'll get on to a little bit later about everything else that's going wrong in the club, because I know you have some strong feelings on that, and we'll also look at potential replacements if he does go. You mentioned about them being completely clueless, completely structureless. Now, this is something that I've been banging on about pretty much since the day that Allegri returned to Juventus. Coming on 15 months ago now, over a year ago now, and how there is just no structure to the team. There's no
Nothing.
Style of play. There's no identity. There's no, and I use this term all the time, there's no patterns of play. Mm-hmm. There's no progressive football. They don't seem to be able to string a few passes together. But even positionally, they don't move as a team. There's no pressing. There was pressing for like the first 15 minutes last night, and then everything just fell apart after that. There's no counter pressing at all. I remember vividly in the Salernitana game where one moment where Juventus lost the ball and Mazzocchi travelled with it on the left wing about 40, 50 yards without anyone even making a challenge, because everyone was backing off. They just, as soon as they lose the ball, Juventus, they just all back off into a low block. I mean, it's such outdated football. Now, having been there at the games, at a number of Juventus games this season, and you're close up, and when you're at the stadium, you can see things that you can't see, on TV. So you'll see the structure, the lack of structure even more. I mean, how bad is it in terms of the lack of structure and the lack of identity when you see it at the stadium yourself?
It's a very good question. And look, I think the concerns that you've raised over the last 15 months are spot on. I'm in full agreement with. But look, I think last night, more than any match I've covered of Juventus this season, and this is mainly because of the quality of the opponent. Make no mistake, coming into this match, I favoured Benfica to come away with maximum points. They haven't won every match they've played this season by chance. They're a very, very good team, a very well-organised team, a very well-structured team, a team full of youth players from their academy, a team full of new signings who have adapted to a style of play. Juventus are the complete opposite. There is no, you are right, that there are clueless players in that team who don't know positionally where they should be, what they should be doing, particularly in the middle of the park. And that, for me, is where I really saw holes in Juventus last night. Defensively, there are issues. We know that. In attack, we know that they have issues bringing Vlahovic particularly into the game. But it's in the middle of the park, and the middle of the park for Juventus is the area that we have discussed now for 6 years that they needed to reinvest in and really strengthen in. And look, it's not about picking on individual players, but players for me of the quality of Weston McKennie, who I've never felt was a player at a level that should be playing, let alone starting and playing 90 minutes in the Champions League for Juventus. These are players that are clearly beyond their depth playing at this level for this club. And conversely, last night, I'm not sure how well or how easy it was to see on the television, but certainly inside the stadium last night, Enzo Fernandez, who I didn't know much about before coming into this match, the number 13 for Benfica, joined from River Plate recently. He was, for me, the star of the show. He was pulling the strings, calling the shots. Everything went through this player in the middle of the park. At not one point did he have an opposing Juventus midfielder anywhere near him. He was able to play the ball, do as he pleased. Conversely, Juventus getting the ball in the middle of the park, it was rushed. It was find an open man, knock it wide, make it their problem. And it just led to no build-up play. And I really felt that as the match went on, Juventus became more desperate. The chances became fewer and further in between, let alone the fact they didn't even have any golden opportunities. I really felt that I think the lack of structure came into play when Di Maria came in the game. Di Maria comes into the game, clearly the best player on the park with respect to everyone else. There were times where the likes of McKennie, Paredes, and the other midfielders would just pass him the ball and be like, well, it's your problem now. Try beat 4 or 5 players and let's see if we can create a half chance out of nothing. And there was, again, just no system, no structure to their attacking movements. For me, though, the low light of the match and really where my frustration for Allegri reached potentially a new high was the moment that he decided to sub Milik off. Milik, by far the best player, the most threatening player in the last few games for Juventus. And if not for some injury or something that we may not know about, with respect to Vlahovic, Milik by far superior last night. Withdrawing Milik and replacing him with Keane later on and leaving Vlahovic there was just no avenue to goal and no way Juventus were going to get back in the match. So at this point, plan A is non-existent. Plan B, well, we don't even know what that is. And that, again, coming back to why Allegri should move on, it's just because there is no synergy between coach and players at the moment.
Listen to the full show and all other episodes by going to patreon.com/TIFP and become a member for only $2.99 per month.